What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training. And today we're going to be breaking down some of the best goal line routes wide receivers can run to score more touchdowns. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it can teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver, we are going to be traveling out to 15 different cities across the U.S. this year for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camp. So if you guys want to come get some work in with us, we will be in San Francisco next weekend. That camp is unfortunately sold out. But then we'll be coming to Orlando, Phoenix, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys want some more information, what you guys will be doing at these camps, how you get some work in with us, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So now, first route I want to discuss here is going to be a goal line comeback with a peek back move. So a peek back comeback. So let's play this full speed. So this wide receiver, Chris Olave, he was at Ohio State, is running this comeback route. So now, peek back is a great thing to use in the red zone because what is a DB always afraid of in the red zone? Back pylon, quick fade, or a jump ball fade if you're a bigger wide receiver. So if you have to run a route like a comeback, like maybe an out route, like maybe a stop route, this peek back is a great way to sell that vertical, right? So on a regular comeback, let's say we're in the middle of the field. Let's say we're on like the 45-yard line. What are we trying to sell? Like, let's say it's a 15-yard comeback. What are we trying to sell to that break point? Fade, right? You're trying to get that DB to flip his hips, make him think that we are running a fade. But now since I'm on the goal line, obviously I can't just run as hard as I can to the back of the end zone, then break down. DB knows we're not going to be running deep. So a way that we could sell fade is we make it look the exact same as how I would run a fade route. DB's lined up inside shade, right? Inside shade on the goal line. We know he's not going to backpedal. So we're going to attack him, give him a move inside, try to get him to hold that leverage and make it look like the goal line fade. Try to get him cheating, try to get his eyes into the backfield by selling with my eyes. Now, one of the mistakes that guys will make on this peek back move, whether they're running an out route or whatever, they'll peek back, but they will lean back. We still need some speed on this peek back move to get that DB to commit and to get that DB to think that it is going to be a fade. So we need to make sure when I peek back, I'm not leaning back. It's just a glance over my inside shoulder. Because like when you're in t-shirt and shorts and you do this move, fellas, it's very easy to want to look all the way back. But when you're in pads and you look back a little bit too far, your chest pops up and we slow down. So that peek back over the shoulder is a great way to get that DB to think fade. We could break this thing right off and we could get a ton of separation between me and this guy. So a peek back comeback or a peek back out route, one of the best routes that you can run on the goal line. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Olave attacking the leverage, selling with the eyes to make it look exactly like that back pylon fade and then getting that toe tap catch. Okay, so now next example I want to talk about here is a diamond release peek back slant. So we're still staying with the theme of that peek back move. We're gonna get to some other moves obviously later, and later in this video, I should say. But this is another great way to sell the fade, right? So everybody on the goal line, right? DBs always are probably going to be playing more often than not inside shade. Because on the goal line, chances are they're going to be running a form of man coverage. So man coverage, this guy usually doesn't have help, but a route that a DB never wants to chase across the field is a drag, is a slant, is a dig. So he's going to be playing inside shade to try to protect that. So my goal, if I actually have a slant, should be to threaten him to the outside, try to get him to open up and think it's that back pylon fade, just like the comeback we were talking about, so I could slip under him. Because a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll try to force it. They'll try to square up the DB and then try to run in front of him. That DB is going to stay patient, going to get hands and squeeze us and reroute us into other routes on the play. So let's watch what this wide receiver does. Kind of attacks leverage a little bit, sells with the eyes to the fade, and gets that DB to open up his hips. That is as textbook as this move can get. So let's break it down. So he comes off the ball. Maybe he could have closed space a little bit with the DB and attacked him first and then gone to the outside. I actually don't recommend running this slant like this because there is a big gap between the two of them. However, it does work because he sells it extremely well. I would recommend to you, though, if I was telling you to run this route, maybe close the space and get into his toes a little bit first and then go to the outside, because then it's more likely for him to open up his hips, and we could actually use my inside hand to throw him by, right? But it decides to go right off the line. 3 hard steps to the outside. Again, you see how he's looking back, but he's not leaning back. It's just a glance over that inside shoulder. Because when we glance over that inside shoulder, I maintain a good pad level position, I could take good strides, and I could actually sell that goal line fade, which will get the DB to open up his hips. And when I put the brakes on, I could easily accelerate and slip under. And you see how he's able to recover and get hands? That's why I would like us to be maybe a little bit closer on this so we could swap by here or here when we're trying to sell this fade. But great job selling with the eyes. Great job using a peek back diamond release slant. That's one of the best routes you can use on the goal line. Just make sure we are closing the gap with him. Fellas, I think that would be a better way to go about this route. Let's play it again, full speed one more time. Great job peeking back, getting that DB to open up his hips, and then winning on that slant. Okay, so now I love a dig route with a rocker step at the top of the break, kind of like a crossover move at the top of the break in the red zone. I think that is one of the best routes that you can run in the red zone, simply because DBs are always afraid of that two-way go when you restack, and you need to keep spacing when you are in the red zone. So this wide receiver's got outside leverage coverage, right? So we know that if we have outside shade coverage, this is one of those rare times that we will see outside shade coverage in the red zone, is that he probably has help to the inside. So he's got a safety help to the inside. So if I have to run an inside breaking route, like a dig, like a post, like a slant, and he's outside shade, especially in the red zone, I can't just take off and go run, because I'm going to be forced right into that safety help. And that's why that safety's there. He is there to help out. So we have to make sure that we get skinny and we stay on my path. This play on paper is drawn up like this, not inside stem and then dig. It's drawn up straight up to 9, 10 yards and then break. So how do we do that? We need to make sure we attack his leverage and we stay skinny when we push up vertical. So let's play this full speed. So wide receiver comes off, attacks DB's leverage, gets skinny, gives a crossover, and then is able to win on that dig while maintaining spacing. So remember, like we said, he's outside shade. So off the ball, he goes and attacks him, because that's going to get him to keep that leverage. And when that DB keeps his leverage to the outside, number one, that makes it easier for me to get back on my path. Number two, when we actually break on the dig, that's a bigger window for my quarterback between safety, man coverage DB, linebacker, whoever's playing man on me, and the free safety who's at the middle of the field. We need to run quarterback-friendly routes, especially in the red zone. Because in the red zone, a quarterback only needs about a half a yard of space, and he can put that ball right on a dime when things are in tight. So we attack his leverage. I attack his leverage here, or we attack his leverage to keep him honest. Let's keep him to the outside. So now when I push back up vertical, I'm back on my path. So now, there's two things we could do here. Number one, we could either work to stack to where he's trailing my back hip, kind of doing this trail technique, right, where he's trailing behind me. Cool, fine. When he's trailing behind me and I got him on my hip at the top of the break, I do some kind of head fake to the outside. You see him, we have the jersey grab as well. Imagine if there wasn't a jersey grab, how much more space we'd have. But again, we get him trailing my back hip because I stayed skinny. I didn't go wide to the inside, then push up vertical. He gets a crossover, gets a DB to hesitate, and we got him. Like I said, only need about a half a yard because that quarterback's going to put it on an accurate spot. Now, what do we do if the DB plays it well? You know what I mean? We come off the line, we get skinny, we're pushing up vertical, but he's right there with me. That's when you would use your size to your advantage, right? Even if you're a smaller guy, you still can use your size or your body as a way to get separation. So we're pushing up vertical here. We want to lean into him. I would lean into him with my left shoulder, my left hip, so when I did break it off, at least I could use him to push off, right, rather than stack and give a move. So you need to make sure you have a plan, but I love a dig against outside shade, press coverage, catch technique, off coverage in the red zone, because it's a great opportunity for us to keep spacing and get easy separation if I have a plan at the top of the route. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by that wide receiver attacking, pushing up vertical, and then giving that crossover move. Okay, so now, next route I want to discuss is a sluggo route in the red zone. So a sluggo in the red zone, I love all double moves in the red zone. The only reason I prefer a sluggo, sometimes a double move can take a while, right? A sluggo, I would say, is probably a quicker move in the red zone. But I love a sluggo because every time in the red zone, fellas, we talked about that with that diamond release peek back. What are DBs afraid of? They're afraid of the slants. They do not want to chase you 50 yards across the field in the red zone when usually it's man. So a sluggo is a great way to get space. So let's watch the wide receiver run this route. So he comes off here, 3 steps to the slant, gets that DB to crash, and then he's able to win on that fade ball. So let's talk about it, right? On any double move, super important that we were trying to get either a guy to drive on the ball or a guy who's on my back hip to try to undercut it, or somebody maybe over the top trying to drive on the ball so I can slip back to the outside. So we have to be a salesman. So when it comes down to being a salesman on a route, you have to make sure that we do 3 specific things. We got to keep my stride and my speed. That's number 1. Your eyes, that's probably the least important out of all of them, even though some people think that that's the most important. Number 3, you've got to commit your hips and shoulders to the initial break. That's the most important one. Stride and hips and shoulders are more important. The eyes snapping to the QB help you get your hips and your shoulders committed down the 45, but the hips and shoulders is what the DB is looking at. You got to understand on the red zone, goal line, everything, a DB is in man, so he's going to be watching our hips. So I have to make sure that my hips and my shoulders commit without me changing speed. A lot of time guys will run a double move and they'll take their 3 steps to the inside trying to sell the route, but they're choppy steps. They might commit their hips and shoulders, but they're taking choppy steps. This wide receiver takes full, this is Andy Isabella, takes full 3 strides, running hard, hips and shoulders were committed. I feel like he may have turned out of there just a tad early, just a little bit early to try to get him back to the fade. But nonetheless, the damage was done because he ran hard, because his hips and shoulders committed, because his eyes snapped. You give me all 3 of those things, there's a point in the red zone, especially, this is why I love it in the red zone, where that DB has to commit. He has to commit to something. He can either sit and give up the slant, or he's got to drive on that thing, because he knows that he's not supposed to give up the slant in that specific case. Let's play this thing again full speed. So to run good routes in the red zone, fellas, I love a double move, I love a sluggo, but we have to make sure we know how to sell it correctly. Let's play this again full speed one more time. Great job by Isabella selling this thing, running full speed, running full stride, and then making that catch over the top. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate. Leave those in the comments section below. Always appreciate the feedback from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come out to one of our 15 off-season training camps this year, we'd love to have you out to one of our 15-city tour. So check out that very first link in the description below if you want some more information. I'll see you guys next time.